Hello everybody, I'm Callum at Repair Wins, and this is the fourth part of the custom sleeper PC series. It's probably not going to be much of a sleeper PC by the time I'm actually done with this series, but regardless, in this video I managed to drill a bunch of holes in the side panel to add a 140mm fan. I removed the temporary SSD and put in a permanent one, and then I also installed the graphics card, and I also test the machine. I actually go as far as to use a thermal camera to show you all of the heat coming out of the box, because I have to justify the money I spent on that camera somehow, given it very rarely actually gets used for repairs around here. Either way though, I really enjoyed putting this one together. The project is well underway now, and in the real world it's practically done. But when I was recording this footage, it was still obviously in progress. But either way, I really enjoyed putting it all together. So hopefully you enjoy watching it. I guess without any further ado, I will cut to whatever the next clip is. I've got myself a new SSD. I say new, it's obviously second hand. It's a 512GB drive, which isn't, that's not massive, but I don't really store a lot on my PC because I have a NAS, so it's only really going to be storing the games that I play the most. As for everything else, it can either go on an external drive, or if I really do have an issue, then I can just put a bigger SSD in there and use this one somewhere else. There we are, so the machine's open. I've been using it temporarily like this for maybe the last 3 or 4 days, and it's worked without an issue. The SSD is going to go at the bottom of the computer, but if the SSD is at the bottom, it's going to do very little in the way of blocking airflow. That's all done, so now let's take a look at the fans. So my fans need to go in between the top of this graphics card and the power supply, but you can see I've got just enough room to put a fan here. We'll have a fan at the front pulling the air in, so there's going to be plenty of air leaving the case, in other words. So what I'm going to do is get the lid, and I'm going to put the lid on, and then happy days. This side of the lid is smooth, you can see, whereas this has got all these ridges. Now trying to cut these ridges out and then file them down smooth so they aren't sharp is quite difficult. So I think the smartest thing to do is just to put the fan pretty much. We've got this notch here, this little thing, so why don't I just get the fan, and then if we have another fan that needs to be installed later, it can just go right beside it in the line. And then if I was just to quickly move this out of the way, you can see that's not going to touch or hit or interfere with anything. This is the sort of thing I'm going for with my PC, by the way. Don't let that Lenovo logo fool you, this is actually a different case entirely. But you can see I've got a 120mm fan mounted. I really don't think that looks too bad at all, especially not when it has the 3D printed cover on it. I'll even show you the angles. I was quite pleased with it because I've managed to file it all down and get it looking semi-decent. But all I need to do, is mark out my case, angle grind it, file it down. Sounds like 10 seconds when I put it like that, but it's going to be a few hours work probably. If I was to get one of the drill bits, so let's say the 4mm one, and put it here, you can see that it's exactly the same size as the hole in the fan, or if anything it's a tiny bit smaller, because you don't want it to literally be the same size, otherwise you'll tear all the threads out. So what I'm going to do is put this 4mm drill bit in. I'm going to clamp down really firmly on the fan. We're going to drill just one hole. I'm then going to enlarge it to be 4.5mm. We can put a screw in here, that's going to hold the fan in place. We can then line the fan up, drill another hole, 4mm, enlarge it, 4.5. 2 screws are going to hold the fan down, and then I can put another one here, another one there, enlarge them in the same way, and we've got the opening for the fan. And then once the opening is made, I can just draw a black mark really easily by going through the blades of the fan with a Sharpie. So I'm going to clamp down on the fan. I guess I'll drill this hole here because it's going to be the easiest one to get access to. I'm putting quite a lot of force down. To be honest, that's all I've really got to do, just to put the mark in the case, and now the mark is there in the case. Oh god. See, that's what happens when you push down with a bit too much force. I've just lifted the entire case up. Okay, that's fine. There's now a hole drilled in here, so that's all that really matters. I've enlarged that, so I'm just going to screw the fan to it now. Alright. That fan is now sort of vaguely secured in place. You can see, look, that hole is exactly where it needs to be. You can see all the way through it to the desk. And so all I've got to do is put the screw in like I say, I think this is the simplest way to do it, because you get the people who will stand and they'll try and use a ruler and they'll try and measure it, and no doubt something ends up getting slightly misaligned. But it's pretty hard to misalign it when there's two screws holding it permanently down. And if we take a look, you can see that it's lined up absolutely perfectly, or if it's not lined up perfectly, then my eyes can't see the difference. So yeah, really pleased with that. I've just reinstalled the 4mm bit. I'm going to tighten it down. That's tightened down, so now we can do the last two. So I'm not actually going to drill all the way through and stuff. I don't need the bit walking around and potentially stripping plastic. I'm literally just going to set it down, run my drill for a moment just to put a little divot in the metal, and then when that divot is in the metal I can then use that to drill through. There we are, that's all that needs to be done. I've just realised there's no reason why I can't just go straight to the 4.5mm bit if the fan isn't there. So that's exactly what I've done. This is the 4.5mm, and now that it's installed, I'm happy enough with that. Let's just get rid of the rubbish. I'm going to come back in here with a dustpan in a moment, but there we go. They're drilled, they're not absolutely perfect, so let me just show you a quick trick to improve them. This is a 7.5mm drill bit, and you can just use it to ream pretty much the edge. So I'm literally just doing this by hand. I'm not pushing down with silly force, because the last thing I want to do is accidentally, you know, put a 7.5mm hole in this metal. Need to be careful if your drill bits are sharp, because you might cut your hand. Just a warning there. Right, there we go, you can see the difference. And we'll just do the same on the bottom. In the real world, if you weren't recording, that would take you less than 10 minutes to have 4 holes drilled, cleaned up, and the line drawn for the fan. Now, obviously, it seems like a really simple job to just cut this metal out and file it down. I did it for a similar computer recently, and it's an absolute nightmare. So, because this is a flat piece of metal, I might instead use Fusion 360 to create a 3D model, pretty much of just a circle, that I'll be able to screw down with these 4 points. I'll make it fairly thick so it's sturdy, and then the theory is I can just drill through. I'll probably be drilling sort of 60 or 70 holes, but that's probably preferable to using the angle grinder and the files, deafening my neighbours, having metal shavings go everywhere, and so on. For all intents and purposes, the diameter of that circle is 130mm. It took some effort, but this model is now in place. It's not perfect, some of the screws have gone in at a little bit of an angle, but the point is it's completely flat the entire way around, so that's all that really matters. All I need to do now is, from the other side, use a template to drill out the remaining 263 holes. Doing that took about 15 seconds, maybe 20. This probably won't take as long as I thought it would actually. Right, I'm obviously not going to show you that entire process, but looking at the camera, it's been about 3 minutes of work to do all of those holes around the outside. I'm also going to do it in a few stages. I've got upstairs neighbours, I don't want them to come down here and kill me. This is clearly messy work, it's ruining the piece of wood beneath, but that's fine, that's the reason it's there. If I accidentally damage a desktop, it's not the end of the world, but look at the state of this workpiece. So I've bashed the muck away, and you can see this clearly isn't perfect. I'll need to go around with a bigger drill bit and neaten all of these holes up, which I'll do with the gloves on so I don't lacerate my hands. But you can see we are getting the pattern that we want, and this idea of using the screws to hold everything in place seems to be working. I'm really quite pleased with how this is going. So you'll notice I've moved it towards the edge of the desk, I've clamped it down, I've done whatever. And this piece of wood is absolutely annihilated, so it's going to have to go in the bin afterwards. But remember, it was already a scrap board and I've already made plenty of use of it. But you can see I've drilled all the holes except for this one, just sort of going round in a circle. I don't know if the template is reusable, but it's worked absolutely perfectly. You know, it stayed clamped down securely in place, and I've been able to use it to drill through however many, I've drilled through. So yeah, I just need to drill the remaining ones, and then we can take this piece off, and no doubt it's going to be an ungodly mess. But we'll just have to see, won't we? We're all done, and I've just got to say, what a tool. I've asked this 1982 drill to drill 268 holes, and obviously I've stopped and I've given it breaks in between, but You know, I took the back cover off out of curiosity, and the brushes are pretty much used up in their entirety. So it's not like this thing sat in a shed. It has actually seen quite a lot of use, and it may very well not even be on its factory brushes. I don't know about that, but what I do know is that I've finally managed to drill all 268 of these holes. And by the way, that was significantly easier than using the angle grinder to cut out an octagon, and then using a file to smooth it all out. So this is the recommended method. It's time for the big reveal. I really, truly cannot say whether it's going to look any good, but oh gosh, let's just flip it around and see. Oof, that looks pretty crap, but do you know what? A lot of those are actually, dare I say it, you know what I mean, it's not all jagged, ripped away metal that's been torn out at. It's but that I mean, you know, that actually does look like a fan grill. And of course, when I hoover all the wood out and I remove the bracket, we'll be able to get a much better look. But that honestly doesn't look too bad. It really doesn't. I've taken the screws out, so the thing has fallen away, but I haven't actually looked beneath. So I think I'm going to do that together with you. Let's flip this over, and ooh, I'm actually quite impressed by that look. It's not even jagged or sharp in most places. There's some burrs here and there, but a lot of those have actually gone really well, and it looks really, really smooth, especially down here. I mean, look at that. That's like it's come out of the factory. This was one of my better ideas for a change. I have actually had a good idea for once. And what I'm going to do is pretty much just use a 7mm drill bit to round off any of these that need to be rounded off. So you can see that some of them are absolutely fine, like this one here, there's no burr. That one there's okay. These two down here are alright. But all I need to do is just pretty much get the drill bit, run it around on the inside of here. That's going to remove the burr. And then obviously when the burr is removed, this will be safe to use. So I'm not going to make you watch me do all of that. I just thought I'd show you a few of them so you can see the process, because I'm going to take this outside and do it out there, so I'm not forever cleaning metal filings off of my desk. But you can see the process. I just put the drill bit in, spin it back a few times by hand. This isn't going to be a quick process, but that's alright. You just spin it backwards a few times by hand, spin it forwards, you know, and that's going to clean up all of these edges nicely. This is the end result. I know you've seen better, but you may very well also have seen worse, especially given this is me doing it with really basic rubbish tools at home. You can see I've just ruined my desk, but I don't really care about that, that'll be fine. This panel doesn't sit perfectly flat, but once it's on the computer it's obviously going to be forced into shape. I've got the torch on my phone switched on, and I've done that so I can get you nice and close so you can kind of see this. I'm not going to bother cleaning off all of this stuff with alcohol and whatnot, because I might get bits of tissue sort of stuck in between the holes. But the point is, I took quite a long time. I went over all of them with the drill bit, and you can see now it's nice and smooth. I can do this and I'm not cutting myself because there's no more raised up or jagged or sharp edges. Yeah, overall I'm really, really happy with this. If I wanted to make it look better, I would paint it, you know, I would sort of mask it off and spray it, but honestly I'm probably not going to bother. All we need to do now though is put the fan onto here, and then we can put this in the case. I've spun around the fan so the wire is here and it's going downwards. The bracing normally indicates where the air is flowing, so here the air is going to get pulled in through the bottom and pushed out through the top, hence where I've got these bits sticking up. So if I put this here, it's going to be blowing air out of the case, and I've just realised I wasted loads of time drilling holes in the middle. But what we can do is sort of admire, yeah, that this fits really nicely, and the airflow should hopefully be fairly good as well. That's plugged in. Now obviously you're not really supposed to plug a fan in while the computer's running, but I can't disturb this SD card data recovery, so I'm working with what I've got. What you can see though is that the fan is obviously running. You hear that? And the fan's running nice and slowly, and the reason why it's running slowly is because the computer's already cool. No trouble whatsoever, look at that. You obviously can't see airflow, but I can tell you there's fairly decent airflow given that fan is spinning quite slowly. So we've now got hopefully enough airflow to keep the GPU cool. Like I say, it's not the best looking mod in the world, but for me it's chucked down the side of my desk. This is a 12 or a 13-year-old computer case. It doesn't need to be perfect, it just needs to run cool, and cool is what it's going to run. I've got this convenient access hole right behind the power supply. You can see that fan is spinning, computer's working. I've actually been using it like this for the last week. The new graphics card has arrived, as you can see. It's not as big as the old one, and I've got to say I was a bit disappointed because it was kind of grubby. I've used some compressed air to blast most of the dust away, and I kind of used a toothbrush to clean it here, so it doesn't look too bad. I've put the computer on the desk. I'm just going to remove the side panel, although I do need to be careful when doing that because I've got this wire here. So if I just sort of hold the case like this, you can see the wire. I'll reach in and unplug the fan. Now that it's unplugged, I can remove the side panel. So holding onto this firmly, and I'm going to transfer it in. But that is now in place. I'm going to clamp it down like this, and I'm just going to put the screw in. I'm going to remove the temporary power supply, and I'm going to do that just using a standard iFixit kit. I'm going to need to hold onto it from beneath, because if I don't hold onto it from beneath, then it's going to fall into the case, and it's got quite a long distance to go before it hits the bottom, so it'll probably cause some damage. Nicely done. I'll put this down, I can move these out of the way, and then we will sort of try our best to lie the computer down. And what we're going to do now is put the second graphics card, put the second power supply in. So I'm going to pick this one up, going to put this one beneath it, bigger one goes on the bottom, we're going to put this one on the top. I'm going to bring them both to the back of the case, and then I need to get these wire cutters under there. So I can now connect the two power supplies together. So it's going to be the grey wire goes to the red wire, and the white wire is the only one that's spare, so it just plugs in beside it. There we go. So these two power supplies, thanks to that connection, will now switch on at the same time. Then I can plug the graphics card power in, plenty of cable length look, and this can sit right in the middle and it won't impede on the fan that way. And then the motherboard's already plugged in, and so is the CPU. So that's pretty much it. I can now stick this thing on the floor and we can give it a test. I decided to use two tea light candles, yes, literally these things, to hold the power supplies up, and the reason why I did that is so I can close the side panel. Anyway, the two PSUs are connected. You can see I've got the computer switched on. I think the fans on the graphics card are stationary because it's running cool at the moment, but as you can see we have got an output, so I'm going to tell it to boot from the USB drive because I'm going to install KDE Linux. I'm going to let the installation finish, I'll set up the operating system, and we can go from there. But I've got to say I'm really looking forward to pushing this graphics card and seeing what it can do. I just thought I would download and install a tool called Furmark. If you don't know what Furmark is, it's a GPU stress test. Apparently my desktop doesn't support any of these resolutions. That's probably just a quirk of Linux. Well, how about I just go up here and choose 4K anyway. I believe that's 3840 by 2160, and we're just going to hit run test. And I want to see, does it instantly crash? And no, it doesn't. That's a very good sign indeed. Alright. I don't really care what the frame rate is, but look at that. 30 frames per second, running at not quite 4K, apparently. I don't know why that is. And if I just pop the side panel off, you can see that, yep, that is indeed my GPU. Power supplies are indeed in there. So I'll just close the case up, and I better put the controller back on top. And I'm really intrigued to see, because I'm going to leave this running for 10 minutes, because remember, in the real world, you're never going to be pushing your GPU 100% pinned for 10 minutes. You know, you might stress it for a few, but unless you'd really be asking a lot of it. But I want to know that this graphics card can run at 100% and not really get sort of above 80 or 85 degrees. My point is, though, that is a power supply from an 11-year-old Lenovo desktop, and it's having absolutely no trouble whatsoever keeping the graphics card alive. I think that's fantastic. I let the test run for a good while. I ended up cancelling it to change some settings. I've let it run again, and the reason why I did that is because the GPU is only being utilised about 70%. I've done some Googling, and the internet pretty much says that Furmark isn't perfect and sometimes it won't fully utilise the graphics card. Either way though, it hasn't crashed, and I've also been stress testing the CPU. So stress CPU 16, 16 being the number of threads it has, and it hasn't really cracked 80 degrees. It's sort of 81 degrees, and it's been hovering around there for the last 5 or 10 minutes. Here it is. You see the CPU, all the cores, 100%. They've been at 100% for ages. So if this processor runs at 80 degrees with the junk F-tier trash cooler that Lenovo put in there at the factory, and just a 140mm fan, because remember, I've not even put the front fan in yet, so I can't fully stress the GPU, but I'm going to start gaming on this box very soon, and obviously I'll be able to do some real world tests. As promised then, I am actually using this thing to play some games. We've been running a new one that we've got. Certainly not the best in terms of graphical fidelity, but you can see the GPU's at 94% utilization, and we've been playing for the last 10 minutes. It's only at 67 degrees. It's not crashed, it's running exactly as you would expect. There's no screen tearing or issues with, well, anything else like that. So this is genuinely working really surprisingly well. I've not actually used it in a video before, but I have a thermal camera, and given it cost me about £200, and given I've not actually used it for that many jobs, I thought, why not justify it by showing just how well this 140mm fan actually works. So if I get really nearby, you can see it's 50 degrees in places, and moreover, if I come away from the case, you can see that all the heat is situated. You would think it's all going to be at the bottom of the case where the GPU is, but it isn't at all, because the 140mm fan is pulling loads and loads and loads of hot air away. And if I hold my hand over, it is, there's a lot of hot air coming out. It's not air that's burning. The thing certainly isn't overheating. It still hasn't gone above 70 degrees on the graphics. Honestly, really pleased with this mod. I didn't think that drilling this many holes would be quite as effective as it actually is. Oh gosh, that took a while, didn't it? I'm afraid that's going to have to do for today. As much as I'd love to make this a 3-hour-long video, I know no one's going to sit and watch that. But either way, I'm really, really pleased with what I managed to accomplish in this episode. Drilling all of those holes, installing the fan, using a drill bit to sort of round the holes so they don't, like cut your fingers if you run your hands over them. It's a lot of work. And then furthermore, replacing the SSD with a permanent one, getting Linux installed, testing the machine. In the real world, it took hours. I mean, I didn't keep count of exactly how long it took, but just know that it took a very long time. And yet, ironically, this video is one of the shorter ones in this custom sleeper PC series thing that I'm doing. So make of that what you will, I suppose. I will say that if you saw something in the video that you liked, or you saw a useful technique, or I don't know, you just enjoyed sitting and watching it, then feel free to leave me a like. You're obviously a free human, you don't have to, it's just a suggestion. Another suggestion is that you could subscribe, because I've got a fairly unique video coming out soon where I repair the desk, the one this tripod is sat on top of, and I don't exactly do it in a standard way, because you know me, I don't want to replace the desk even though it was already built out of scrap. I want to just take out the damaged bit and put a good bit in there, so I'm currently in the process of doing that. Hopefully it'll be the next video. If it's not the next video, then it'll be just another one in this Sleeper PC series, I suppose. But the best way to be notified of when that video comes out is obviously to hit the subscribe button, completely free. You can always change your mind if you decide these videos aren't for you. I do have a tendency to ramble, so how about I just stop myself right there. I'm going to get on out of here. It is, my word, it's 9:30 at night. Goodness, right, well I'd better stop what I'm doing now then, hadn't I? So I will see you later. Take care for now, and goodbye.